enjoying their dinner. We're going to start the program. If everybody would like to take their seats, I'm going to introduce Tony Rico. He is going to introduce the late Ed Robb Public Service Award winner.
Okay, good evening, everyone. One of the great things that we have the pleasure of doing here every year for a while is to award a worthy public servant and give an award out. And this award is named for Edward Robb. Dr. Edward Robb. For those of you who don't know who Dr. Edward Robb was, Ed was a tireless public servant, all right? He did serve in the legislature here, and he was also a professor at the University of Missouri, so a professor of economics. And so there are some of us around. He advised governors, and he advised state of Missouri, Boone County, on economic issues. And he was a tireless public servant and volunteered in many ways. And so as a way of honoring his legacy, the Republican Central Committee did start an award named in his honor. And it is always awarded on this night, which is great. And tonight's honoree is somebody who embodies all the traits that Dr. Edward Robb did. And so I'm going to go ahead and talk about this year's winner. And I'm going to cheat a little bit because of the notes. It's been a long week. Our award winner tonight, we're pleased to say, he works for the Army National Guard. He's the Facilities Maintenance and Construction Office Manager, and he manages the state, Missouri State National Guard contract. And he also serves with the 35th Infantry Division, which is based in St. Joseph's, Missouri, where he's the Chief Chemical Officer for his division and Divisional Safety Officer. And he currently holds the rank of Major, but he'll be promoted soon to Lieutenant. But previous to this, he was the State Safety and Occupational Health Manager for the Army National Guard. And he managed the occupational health and safety of our National Guard facilities throughout the entire state of Missouri, and did so honorably. Locally, he has served as an alderman for the city of Centralia, and he was appointed mayor in 2007, but was elected in his own right 5 consecutive terms starting in 2010. He served on various boards and committees. Right, and he served on the board of directors for the Missouri Municipal League and became its vice president in 2018. He also serves as a coordinator for St. Mary Magdalene's Catholic Church in Mexico, Missouri, so he's a man of faith, and I know that by talking to him many times. And he is a veteran of the United States Marine Corps, having served 11 years on active duty. He served in Desert Shield and Desert Storm. And then he, after his time in the military, served in the reserves. So he has served his country, he has served his state, he has served his locality as well. And without further ado, I want to award this. I think everybody knows that I'm talking about Tim Gregg.
Good evening. When I found out I was being nominated for this award, I was taken aback. Because although I've been servant of the country and the community and the state, it's just what I do. I love people. I love helping people and trying to do my best for our community and for other people. So I'm very honored to receive this award, and thank you for being nominated for that. One of the things I like to tell a story every time I get a chance. Y'all notice I'm wearing a red shirt tonight? So I wear a red shirt every Friday because it's Red Shirt Friday. How many people know what Red Shirt Friday means? Okay, a few. So, to tell you a story about how the Red Shirt Friday started. RED is an acronym. The military likes acronyms. I did acronyms. So, RED stands for Remember Everyone Deployed. Okay. So, happened many years ago, a businessman was on a plane, and he noticed a Marine sergeant in his dress blue getting on a plane with him. Well, that Marine sergeant was offered a seat in first class, which is kind of typical when the airline recognizes a soldier, they're in uniform. They tend to honor that soldier with offering them, move him up to first class. So he did. So the business owner asked the Marine sitting across the aisle from him, hey, are you on your way home? The Marine's like, no, sir. Okay, well, what's going on? He says, well, I'm escorting a friend home. And the business owner was like, well, is your friend back to the plane, or where's your friend? He's like, no, he's in home. He was killed in Iraq. And this Marine got the honor to escort his friend back to his family. So they got to talk a little bit, and as the plane landed, I think it was in Chicago, the pilot stopped the plane a couple feet short of the gangway for the airport. He got on the loudspeaker and he asked people to remain seated until this Marine was able to recover his friend from the cargo hold. And they moved forward and everyone flied. So as the business owner is looking out the window, he sees the Marine at where the cargo is being unloaded, and he sees the coffin of his friend, and he salutes the coffin, renders that honor to his fallen comrade, and they escort him home. Well, that got the business owner to thinking, like, what can I do to help honor these deployed soldiers and Marines? So he got back to his company Monday morning. He says, this is what we're going to do. Every Friday, we're going to wear a red shirt in honor of all those that are deployed for this country, for the freedoms that we enjoy in this country. So that's the origin of Red Shirt Friday. So next Friday, go ahead and wear your red shirt in honor of everyone deployed. So again, I'm highly and deeply honored to receive this award, and I will continue to serve my country. I will continue to serve my God and my church, and couldn't do it all without my lovely wife, Cherie, and appreciate it. One of the big things about, we thank soldiers and Marines and sailors and all service members. We also need to thank their families for putting up with all of the deployments and lonely nights at home and missing ball games and functions with the family, because those soldiers and Marines love our country and they love doing what they do. So thank you all very much. God bless you, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you, Tim. That was very moving. And let's give him another round of applause. All of us here who have been in public service know the sacrifices that our family and that we make to serve the people in our community. And sometimes we're not thanked enough. So thank you again for what you have done for our country, our state, and our communities. I'm pleased to announce this evening our keynote speaker. I have to say that in the world that we live in, it's very interesting to find somebody that you run across that you actually have a connection to. Come to find out, our keynote speaker this evening has been best friends with my brother-in-law since they were young children. And so I just had to point that out because my brother-in-law is a general in the Marine Corps. And any friend of his is a friend of mine. So this evening, I'm pleased to introduce Christopher Arks. Christopher Arks is the managing partner with the Public Affairs and Communications Consulting for Red Tail Strategies, LLC. He is a National Advisory Board member of the National Center for Public Policy Research, Project 21. He is the co-founder of MoveOnUp.org, president of Americans for Citizens Voting, a 501c4 dedicated to the belief that only citizens should vote in our local elections, and how prevalent is that in today's He is the guest host and contributor on his local conservative radio station, KFTK 97.1 in St. Louis, Missouri, and he is also known to me on the Eagle 93 Wake Up Columbia. I know that show well. He is also host of the Water Cooler Politics with Christopher Arks podcast. He has been quoted on BET.com, CNN, The Washington Times, The Washington Post, St. Louis Post-Dispatch, American Urban Radio Network, and by numerous other blogs. He has appeared on Great Britain's Channel 4 News and the BBC, so he's well versed in the world. Mr. Arks' political experience includes St. Louis Field Representative for U.S. Senator Jim Talent of Missouri, campaign manager for the 2006 Sherman Parker for Congress campaign, and an appointed aide to both the St. Louis County Council and the St. Louis County Board of Election Commissioners. Mr. Arks also served as an appointed commissioner to the St. Charles City Housing Authority and the St. Charles City Planning and Zoning Commission from 1995 to 1997. So please, everyone, give a round warm of applause for Christopher Arks.
Well, I tell you, half of that stuff I forgot. So, thank you for having me tonight. How's everyone doing? It almost seems like this crowd here is almost back to normal pre-COVID, doesn't it? Before I get started, I want to acknowledge some of our elected officials that are here. I'd like to recognize Secretary of State Jay Ashcroft. Senator Caleb Browden. Representative Cherie Representative Chuck Basie. And Representative Sarah Walsh. I also have to acknowledge Mike Zweifel and Tony Lupo for giving me the opportunity to speak. Really honored for that. And then I have to give a special acknowledgement to my buddy here, Brandon Racker, 93.9 Eagle, and his friend Marcy. I want to appreciate them for staying at their house tonight. So thank you for saving us a hotel bill. Really appreciate it. And I have to do something that I always forget. I have to acknowledge my lovely wife, Becky Hart. Not only do I love her, but she's my absolute best friend, and I absolutely adore her. And I couldn't do half the stuff that I do without her support behind me. So I love you, babe, and thank you for standing behind me. You know, I forgot. I want to mention the Wake Up Columbia crew, Stephanie Bell, Brad Trinago, Hannah Atkinson, and I've already mentioned Brandon Rapp. Yeah, exactly. You know, with the times and everything that we're seeing going on, you know, these companies are turning woke. We see Delta, we see Coca-Cola. Well, did you guys know that McDonald's, unfortunately, is getting into the woke game? They've come out with a new meal called the McBiden Value Meal. And with the McBiden Value Meal, you order your meal, and the guy in back of you pays for it. You know, there's one thing that was not mentioned, and it's kind of a recent thing for me. I appear on Newsmax on Wednesdays and Thursdays from 5:30, 6, and 7. And I am on with 3 or 4 other people. We talk about the political issues of the day. So I'm sure many of you watch Newsmax now. A lot of people have kind of left Fox and have gone to Newsmax. So if you want to catch me on Newsmax, that's where I'm at. You know, as I was thinking of the theme for this talk tonight, the obvious theme came to me as we approached spring and the crucifixion of our Lord and Jesus Christ. Spring is a time of renewal, new life, a time for new beginnings. The trees are starting to bud, and currently my lawn needs cutting to the dismay of my neighbors. I'm going to probably take us out when we get back. I should have cut it before we left. It's probably really, really high. I always hated winter as a kid. Everything seemed dead, dormant. And as friends can tell you, I hate cold weather because Black people are tropical people, and we don't like cold weather. That's what I always tell my friends. So you guys and gals that deer hunt and do that, I applaud you, because I would be absolutely miserable outside of the deer stand freezing to death. I just can't do it. But as I said as a kid, everything seemed dead in the winter. No hope for renewal and new life. But you know, come late March, early April, the days get a little warmer and a little longer, and as we once again witness God's glory as He reanimates His creation. I believe the current political situation in this country, with Joe Biden winning a questionable election in November, and the Democrats taking control of Congress, it seems the country, from our perspective at least, is in a cold and deep winter. The Democrats are spending, really borrowing and printing money, huge sums of money, to pay off their constituent groups and to pay their big donors. All this is being done on a straight party line vote, and it seems the Republicans in Congress are unable to do anything about it. Just yesterday in the Rose Garden, President Biden, Vice President Kamala, did I say it right? Kamala, which one is it? Kamala Harris, and Attorney General Merrick Garland outlined how they were planning to subvert the Second Amendment with constitutionally questionable proposals like red flag laws. These are controversial laws where, in some jurisdictions, the mere accusation that you are a danger to yourself or your community can result in the legal confiscation of your firearms without due process. We now have a crisis on our southern border, a crisis that was being controlled by President Trump who was in office. Pictures that had to be literally smuggled out of a detention camp by a Democratic congressman, no less, show horrid conditions with children sleeping next to each other on the floor during a pandemic. The new administration gaslights us daily, and with a straight face says what's going on the southern border is not a crisis. It reminds me of the old Groucho Marx line, who are you going to believe, me or your lying eyes? You guys remember during the 1991 Gulf War when the Baghdad Bob, who was the spokesman for Iraq, and he was on TV saying that the Americans are nowhere close to Baghdad, we're controlling them. And then on this split screen, you see the Americans taking control of Baghdad. It kind of reminds me of Jen Psaki. You know, she's kind of a Baghdad Bob, trying to tell us that nothing's going on in the border, and we clearly see that it is. You know, we're seeing videos of toddlers being dropped by drug cartel coyotes from a 14-foot border wall. That's a crisis. We're listening to a 10-year-old boy describe being abandoned in the desert by drug lord cartels. This is a crisis. Where's AOC? Why hasn't she demanded better conditions for these children with the force and vigor that she did when President Trump was in office? Trump was supposedly keeping children in cages, the same cages the Obama administration constructed and used when they had their own border crisis. And last but not least, in the winter of our supposed political discontent, a professional sports league has decided to once again preach to us about societal justice while once again showing their sheer hypocrisy. Major League Baseball has moved its All-Star game from Atlanta, which has a 50% black population, to Denver, which has a 9% population. Why? Because they swallowed hook, line, and sinker the lies from Georgia's shadow governor, Stacey Abrams, and our so-called voting rights group. Because we are informed, we know their lies. No, it is not illegal to hand water to voters in line to vote. Poll workers can hand out water, not electioneering, like a lot of people electioneering basically. No, polls will not be closing at 5 p.m. The Washington Post of all publications gave Biden 4 Pinocchios for this lie. No, it is not disenfranchising voters to require an ID to vote. You need an ID. Ready? Don't clap on that. You need an ID to vote in every function of society, even to get a COVID shot. The new law will provide you an ID for free of charge if you can't afford one. And if you're a senior citizen and you don't have a birth certificate, the state will grandfather you in and will give you a birth certificate, or will give you a state issue ID. Now, as a black person, and I'm sure Cecilia back there can attest to this, it is highly insulting to suggest that black people are too stupid and incompetent to obtain an ID. You know, talking about the bigotry of low expectations, this is a prime example of it. Now, I have to admit to you, for someone like me who eats, drinks, and speaks politics for a living, because I thoroughly enjoy it, I sometimes get in the funk when I see what's going on in our nation. Those of you that are my Facebook friends, you may notice that occasionally I go dark and don't post for a couple of weeks or post very sporadically. It's because I look out at the political landscape and all I see is winter. But I break out of it because I know that's what the progressive left wants, for us to give up and to hand them the country. Well, I don't know about you, but I will never give up, no matter how bleak that it looks. Just as new life is beginning to emerge again after winter, I believe there are 5 signs of a political spring for us Republicans that are also beginning to emerge. 1, the voters in the suburbs who voted for President Trump in 2016 but not in 2020 did not necessarily vote for fundamentally changing America into a European-style democracy. They unfortunately let their emotions get in the way of rational thinking, all because they hated President Trump's personality and his unorthodox methods while president. If you remember during the campaign, Democrats hid Joe Biden away in his basement in Vermont, and we never really learned anything about what he wanted to do as president. He and Kamala were asked repeatedly if they plan on radically changing the Supreme Court or adding new states, and every time they never gave a clear answer, a clear definitive answer. And of course, lapdog media, who were in the tank for Biden, never bothered to ask him any hard questions. 2, this legitimization, I hope I said that correctly, of biological males competing in girls' sports is going to be a bone of contention for many in 2022 and 2024. In the early days of the Biden presidency, Biden signed executive orders that basically destroys female athletics. I also find it ironic that the party of so-called science is blatantly denying science. I wrote an article for RedState.com in January about this, titled "Sanctioning Cheating in the Name of Fairness." I wrote, "We have now gone from a generation that receives participation trophies just for showing up to awarding trophies for sanctioning cheating, all in the name of fairness." How much sense does that make? 3, the strong showing President Trump demonstrated in November in the Texas border counties with Mexico. In Zapata County, for the first time in 100 years, the overwhelmingly Hispanic county voted for a Republican for president. And it wasn't the only border county in Texas to flip red during the presidential election. Democrats will have you believe that Hispanic Americans and those who are here legally in this country are in favor of illegal immigration. Polls consistently say they are not. And they too favor strong border enforcement. The fact the administration is now suggesting filling in the gaps of the border wall is a major reversal in the administration and the Democrats. 4, Republicans control the vast majority of the state legislature, just like they do here in Missouri. In 23 states, Republicans control the legislature as well as the governorships. Today, there are 27 Republican governors. There are 4,007 Republican state legislators compared to 3,312 Democratic state legislators. The state legislator advantage means Republicans will draw the lines for reapportionment for about 4 times as many House seats as the Democrats. This will further increase Republican opportunities in 2022. And finally, 5, the strong showing President Trump had among African Americans, especially males. The president received almost 20% of the African American male vote in 2020. He doubled his percentage from 2016 of African American women from 4 to 8%. I believe this is a strong base to build on for future gains if, and that's a big if we maintain consistent and credible outreach to the African American community. Jeremiah 29:11 says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." I believe that with this promise from the Lord and from the hard work and dedication of the people in this room, we will ultimately prevail over the political and spiritual forces of darkness that now seems to have the upper hand. There's an old saying that I want to close with tonight, and I ask everyone in this room to do this. It is, let's work like it's up to us, but pray like it's up to God. Thank you, and good night.
Thank you, Christopher, for those words of encouragement. I think we all need to hear that, and we've got some work to do in the next couple of years. Next, I would like to introduce Miss Cecilia Johnson. In a life filled with meaning and accomplishment, Cecilia Johnson has emerged as one of the conservative movement's most compelling young figures. As the founder of multiple urban organizations, she has helped create an environment in Missouri where minority voices and issues are heard, prompting real solutions. Originally from a small trailer park in the southeast Arkansas, her mother announced she was moving her and her little sister to the east side of Kansas City, Missouri. Unwilling to move, she tried everything she could to keep her mother from moving to such a violent area where she would surely be robbed and shot as she saw on television. In 1997, she moved to the city and quickly adapted to the faster pace of life there. She spent the remainder of her childhood and teenage years in various failing inner-city public schools. In 2006, she graduated from Central Greek Classical Academy, a at the time labeled one of the worst performing schools in the state of Missouri. Today, you can find her giving speeches across the country and working to further the conservative movement in the Black community. She is the former and the first Black president of the Kansas City Young Republicans and is the first Black office holder in the Missouri Federation of Young Republicans. In 2012, she was awarded the Red Alert Politics 30 Under 30, celebrating 30 young conservatives under the age of 30 working to advance the conservative movement. In 2019, she was selected to be an advisory board member for Black Voices for Trump Coalition. Please give a warm welcome for Cecilia Johnson.
Thank you guys for having me back here. I believe the last time I was here was a chili cook-off. Did you bring me some? It was good. I left happy and satisfied. I want to thank you all very much for coming out tonight. I want to thank you for inviting me back to Boone County. I always have a great time here. Always enjoy meeting with the wonderful people that live in this great county. As she said, my name is Cecilia S. Johnson. I am originally from a trailer park in southeast Arkansas, a small, very small rural town that sits on the largest oxbow lake in North America. When I was 10 years old, my mother announced we were moving to Kansas City. I was not happy. I fought, screamed. If you know anything about having a southern parent or a rural parent, they ain't listening to nothing you saying, okay? So whatever they say goes. So there I landed in Kansas City, Missouri. I come from a long line of hog farmers, before that sharecroppers, and before that slaves. When I moved to Kansas City, I got my first experience with inner city education, but we'll talk about that in a moment. In 2008, I was with a friend in a Walgreens as she got a prescription filled, and I decided to flip through some magazines. Why not? I flipped through this particular magazine and landed on an article of this, saw a picture of this fine Black man. Now ladies, fellas, cover your ears. Ladies, you know how it is when a man can really wear a suit, okay? So I was like, okay, well this man must really know what he's talking about because he looks good. So what is he talking about? So I looked at the title of his article and there was something to the tune of Why I'm a Black Republican. And I thought to myself, well they have Condoleezza and Holy Cow, don't they have enough of us? Apparently not. And little did I know they were about to get one more. So I read his article. I found a lot of similarities in our upbringing, single parent household, raised in the inner city, and he spoke about things and about solutions to our community that I had never heard anyone speak about. I had never heard these things, and I was like, well, gosh, this makes a lot of sense. Let me look into it a little deeper. That night, I went to Wikipedia, and I researched online until 4 a.m. And at 4 a.m., I decided, you know what? I'm a Republican. I can't tell anyone. Now my journey, like Chris knows, is not easy. It has not been an easy one either. There are a lot of challenges that come with choosing to believe in what I believe in and looking the way that I look. But, you know, that's not going to stop me because I'm always up for a fight. So in 2019, 2010, I really started volunteering on campaigns and started getting more involved. And then someone said, hey, do you want to do this? We'll pay you to do it. And I was like, really? Real money? Okay, well, sure, why not? And that began my political career. Throughout the times, I have become a political consultant, I'm volunteer coordinator, campaign manager, but my favorite political title came in 2019 when I received the call from the Donald Trump for President campaign. On the other line, I thought somebody was playing with me. On the other line was someone saying, hey, we would like for you to be a part of the Donald Trump campaign and sit on the advisory board and try your best to get more black people to vote for President Trump. And I gladly accepted so quickly. And before you ask, yes, your president did get the pleasure of meeting me. And I am happy to announce that he is a fan. I gave him my autograph and everything. So he is a lifelong fan of Cecilia S. Johnson, AKA everyone's favorite right-wing extremist. Now, originally I didn't support President Trump. I was not a supporter. I really was falling for the media lies of what he believed and how he felt about everyone, really. But it really changed when I watched a debate with him and Hillary Clinton, the supposed to be First Lady President. And I was like, you know what? I see it now, and I get it. And what also was funny, I knew he was gonna win. I was so confident. Everyone was nervous. And I was like, oh no, don't worry, he's gonna win, Just chill out. And they were like, how are you so calm? And I'm like, look, I've never had this many black people tell me they were voting for Republicans. Okay? While on the campaign trail, I did a lot of things. One of my favorite accomplishments was writing my first book, The Life of the Party Memoirs of the Hood Conservative. But I also got to travel across the country and go into black communities all over the country and show support for the president and show people that his policies were phenomenal for the black community, all communities, but particularly the black community. And a lot of his policies really went on to benefit my community. We had opportunity zones, which I live in, and I am enjoying it because my property value is through the roof. So thank you, President Trump. He also supported criminal justice reform, as well as school choice and support of proper funding and fair funding for HBCUs or historically black colleges and universities. And that just went on to prove that my president, my forever president, is a true fighter for the little people. And I truly appreciate that based on my experience in inner city public education. As she said, in 2006, I graduated from Central High School. And Central High School at the time, and still today, is one of the worst performing high schools in the state of Missouri. In 2019, their test scores showed that only 12% of the students were on grade level for English. 12%. Does anyone want to guess what that number is for math? 0. Not a single student in the whole high school is on grade level or advanced in math and mathematics. While at Central, I also received what I deem a pretty liberal education. The Democrat Party and Planned Parenthood was allowed into our high school to talk about activism, but you should give yourself a round of applause because your tax dollars pay for that. Yes. And this is something that really, really needs to change. It is killing the potential of millions of kids across our country. And as we know, an educated mass is one that is far less likely to become reliant on the state or become a burden to society. But the main reason is that it's just wrong. Democrat legislators ignore the cries of these children that they represent and so-called love and support. And so the Party of Freedom, my party, must answer the call and stand up and fight for education equality. At this time, I do want to acknowledge you guys as legislators here who are all supporters of school choice. We have my dear friend, Representative Walsh. I can't just say Sarah. Representative Basie in the back there. I cannot see Senator Browden, but he is here somewhere. There he is right there. And we have one of our state leaders here, great state leaders here, and he is a huge, tremendous support, so much of a supporter, in fact, that whenever I bring groups of people who want to advocate for school choice legislation, his office lets us use their services, and they set up tables and space for us. Thank you very much, Secretary Ashcroft. So in addition to that, it is the single most supported issue in the Black community. Over 70% of the Black community supports school choice. This is our winning issue with the Black community. We need school choice now, and we need to make sure that we stay connected. So I do have sign-up sheets in the back for everyone. Please stay connected. Please come join this fight for school choice to make sure that we're all able to receive a good quality, fair education in this state. So I told you some of my many titles that I've held. She told you some as well, so I'm not going to repeat them. Very long list. But my favorite title is that of mother. So, thank you, Sarah. Oh, Representative Walsh. I was a person that never really wanted kids, never really wanted to get married, but on October 16, 2011, I gave birth to the most fabulous Republican we have ever seen. She was amazing. Attended political events with me. She would drink her little milk out of wine glasses so she could be like everyone else, and just had a grand old time in the grand old party. On July 14th, I received a call that no parent wants to receive. I was informed to come to the hospital, to the local Children's Mercy Hospital, and upon arrival, I found out that there had been an accident. My bumbling baby girl was run over by a car, and within 3.5 hours, she died from her injuries. My life has been changed forever, but I do know that everything happens for a reason. I am still a woman in mourning, but what do I do with all this pain? What do I do with all of this confusion? Yes, I feel alone. Yes, I feel like at times that I may not be able to go on. But I can't just allow myself to shrink away and feel sorry for myself. Or I can turn around and use all of this experience and resource to make sure that no child in the state of Missouri is allowed to slip through cracks. I can channel the love that I still feel for my daughter into that of all the other little Amelias out there. It was through my mourning that I found my greatest motivation, and I will not stop until my mission is complete and every child has a fair shot at life. You and I are not very different right now. As a party, we feel defeated, kicked down, and that may be so, but I assure you that we are not finished. Now, I don't know about you, but my party does not give up. Okay? It was my party that saw a group of people being enslaved, beat, and raped, and fought for their freedom. My party is the party that is fighting for underserved students not receiving a fair and quality education every day. And my party does not give up. And we sure as hell ain't gonna start now. Thank you guys very much for your time. Thank you very much for your support of your local Republican Party. And thank you very much, and you guys all be safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Cecilia, for sharing your personal story and giving us such words of encouragement. We certainly appreciate that. It is my pleasure right now to introduce Daniel Hartman. He is here representing Senator Josh Hawley's office.
Hi, my name is Daniel Hartman. I'm Senator Hawley's state director. Senator Hawley wanted me to come here tonight and give you one central message. We are facing 18 months of peril, and now is not the time to be timid. Open borders are causing chaos and crisis, There's a march towards a national gun registry. They're trying to erase our election laws. They want to make Puerto Rico and Washington, D.C. states. They packed the Supreme Court. And just today, actually, the Biden administration said that their plan to handle the worst immigration crisis in 20 years could be, well, maybe we're going to pay the migrants not to come into the country. Did you hear this? This just came out today. They acknowledge they may pay. They're going to take your tax dollars and they're going to send it down to somebody. They're going to pay them not to come. Well, Senator Hawley's not going to give an inch on these radical proposals. It's not going to happen. That's not what you sent Mr. Washington to do. And let me give you a personal anecdote. Now, I have known Senator Hawley and worked with him for 10 years. And we have litigated in courts. We have canvassed this state back and forth on the campaign trail. I see some of you that actually helped on those efforts. Thank you. And now in the Senate, here's what I've learned. After 10 years with Senator Hawley, he does not back down. That's not what you sent him to Washington, D.C. to do. And especially when it comes to standing up for you, he won't give an inch. He won't give an inch. Now, I don't know if you've heard, but Democrats are finding this out the hard way. And it's making their heads explode. Now, they had tried to expel, censor, investigate, cancel Josh, but let me tell you something. He's not going anywhere. He's standing firm because when it comes to you, he's not going anywhere. The reason they're doing this is because they're trying to silence you. It's not about Josh. They're trying to silence you. So, in closing, here's a note of hope. The country is getting a really good look at their policies, and they don't like it. They don't, when people are asked, they don't like open borders. They don't like boys playing girls' sports. They don't like our election laws being erased. And you know what? That's why we're going to take back the House and the Senate in 2022. It is a bright future ahead if we stand firm. Thank you very much.
Next, I'd like to introduce Hunter Thomas. He is here representing State Treasurer Scott Fitzpatrick.
So I don't know how to follow everybody else, but we did. The treasurer is sorry he couldn't be here tonight. They're getting ready in a couple weeks to welcome their third baby boy. So we're all excited. The team is growing. How many of you guys saw the article last week where Treasurer Fitzpatrick has returned $100 million in unclaimed property back to you? And because they were our unofficial property ambassador, Cherie Tolson. We couldn't do it without Representative Walsh here in Boone County as well. She is done great. The first Senator Browden and Representative Basie also helped out. We realize Washington is a mess, but we have great people here in Missouri, like Governor Mike Parson. So I have one question for you. The governor gets all over the state and he uses everything. The one question he gets is, Governor, when are you going to reopen the state of Missouri? And what do you guys think his answer is? Sarah, you know it. I never shut Missouri down. We actually have a state that has been over the whole time. You know, I traveled to Springfield, to Joplin. Springfield has some of the worst mask mandates I've ever seen. Worse than Columbia, and I didn't think that was possible. You know, well, in St. Louis, you know, Secretary Ashcroft's been on the road with us. He's, you know, seen them. But we got to think back. 2 months ago, we think we were going to have 150 people here tonight. If we think we could get 150 people here in Boone County, for you guys who don't know who Treasurer Fitzpatrick is, he's a small business owner. And you know, during COVID, it's been tough for all of our small business owners. If you're a small business owner, please stand up. Caleb, I know you're an all around. Thank you. You know, this is rough coming in our government. And I know if you're a small business right here in Boone County, it was tough. Am I right? It was tough in St. Louis, Kansas City, St. Louis. But you know, now that how many parents are happy that Columbia's back in school? Right? So I mean, it's great to see schools opening back up, but what I can tell you is going to Jeff City, they never closed. Mayor Turgeon kept us going, kept the kids going, and you know, I work in state government, so I can say, your love, we never shut down. We kept going. delegation that are here tonight. Northern Cass County Commissioner Ryan Johnson. Senator Browden. And a few others. And also here tonight, who'll help defend the supermajority in the Missouri House, Chase Campbell. And on that list. But it's great to be back in Boone County. You know, having 150 people actually being out doing campaign events again. As the secretary, knows is it normal yet? Are we back to normal? Are we gonna get in trouble for not having masks on? Do we care at this point? But the one thing I can say during the campaign is asking the treasurer, do you have a mask in your bag before you get on the airplane to fly up here? Are you sure? Okay, oh wait, we're going to mask protect, we're good. But it's great to be back in Boone County with so many people. You know, the year curators are here tonight. It's great to see them. You know, it's great to be with Christopher Arks. You know, it's great. My good friend Cecilia Johnson, who I had the privilege of meeting back in 2016, you know. We worked on separate campaigns, so we were at most of the same events. But working for the treasurer has been an honor. You know, you got the sports in Boone County. You know, you definitely know what work is when you put 4 by 93 feet, right, Sarah? So we did it. 48 4 by 8. But it's great to be here with so many Republicans tonight. You know, we are going to win in 22, and we are going to fire Nicole Galloway. So, don't quote me. We're off the record, right? No media? Okay, good. We are going to fire Nicole Galloway in 22 because, you know, she is a mess. For all she's a mess. And the governor proved that by beating her by 17 points. And taking away her right to choose the redistricting demographer. Thank you, Secretary. And when the Democrats want to say, well, that wasn't fair, well, you had a Democrat judge who wrote that language. So, you know, it is fair. Judge Joyce wrote that, didn't she?
They rewrote it twice, so.
Well, that's still. We might know our maps by May, we might know by June, you know. It depends what the Biden administration decides to actually do. But it's great to be here with so many people in the room tonight. As a Republican, most of you guys know how my brother and I were raised. My brother worked for the Trump administration. I stayed stateside because I was like, yeah, no, I'm good. I'm not doing all that. He was there when they moved the embassy to Jerusalem. So that was good. He was there. You worry about him when he's, every time he stepped outside, he had a federally issued firearm and Secret Service. So we were good. But it's great to be here. I want to thank Representative Walsh. She got more funding for Task Force 1 this year. And we do back the blue. So we do support our police officers. I can tell you, if Republicans stuff, we have blue on our stuff, we are not going to defund the police as long as you do have state liability. It's great to be here, guys. I will be around. The treasurer, again, is sorry he couldn't be here tonight. He loves Boone County, but it's just, the wife comes first. As the secretary knows, the family comes first. But he enjoys what he does. He appreciates it. We're turning $100 million in the first, 100 plus days in office. That's tough to do in unclaimed property. So if you guys have unclaimed property, Cherie can get you set up. She knows where to look. Just please get your property back. You don't need this treasure something. Right, Cherie? Yeah.
That's right. It's in my purse. I'll give you that.
And we accept campaign contributions too. Just give it under $2,600. 2650 for Staley? Keep it under 2650? 27 is even better, but we're at 50. But I do not. But yeah, it's great to be here tonight with so many leaders. I want to thank Tony and Mike for everything they do. Of course, Rosa in the back, who she's been like mom to me since I was 7. I've known Rosa. But it's great to be here. I think Laura. We miss all of us. Are you going back to wake up Columbia anytime soon? No, wake up. Not every morning. I was listening every morning to you. But I want to think, yeah. Right? I hear Brandon's. I'm here for this guys. I didn't know where I was off, so that's why I woke up early. But it's great to be here. It's great to see so many college Republicans, the high school Republicans there. It's great to see. That's the next generation. I without the dictionary. I remember when I was there. But I want to thank you guys for everything you did from the ground up. Like we said, it starts with the mom. So it starts here at your city. And you know, we can't take one. We can take the mayor. It's going to take what we can do. You guys have helped in many ways. I mean, we do we're going to need groundwork again, but it's just waiting to see what's going to happen. Wait to see what happens, you know, in the U.S. Senate race, who announces who decides to run. But we want to thank you guys for everything again, and thank you guys for coming tonight.
You know, the day of technology, we have to use our cell phones for our talking points. So, next thing we're going to have is, we usually don't do this, but we're going to have a live auction. So tonight, Tony is going to come up and be our auctioneer. I'll let you describe what we have. This is the program from the governor's inauguration, as well as an invitation. And in this program, all of the constitutional officers have actually given their autograph. So that is certainly going to be a collector's item going forward. So the first bid will be at least $100. So who wants to offer $100? And Tony Lupo is going to take over this job.
Okay, we're going to see how similar a professor is to an auctioneer. Anyway, if anything, you're going to have to pay to get me off this stage. And you get the beautiful program, like Laura said, and it has all the autographs in it, and the invitation from the governor's inauguration. So, do we have $100? We have $100. Do I have $200? $200. Come on, I feel like this is exam day. Come on. Wait, do we have 200? Oh, yes, we do. 200. Do I have 300? 300. Sarah. Any others? 400. 400. Let's go for 400.
First Lady Priest Parks' signature is in there too.
Yes, the First Lady's signature. 400 right there. We have 400. Does anybody want to go 5? $500. Do I hear 6? 600.
That's ridiculous.
$600. $550. $550. $525. Going once. Okay, $525. $525. Do I hear $550? $550. $575. $575. Anybody? $600. $575. $600. Do I have $625? $650. $650. $650. $675. $700. $700. We have $700.
How about we both give $700?
How about you both give $700? Wow, $1,400. That works. And are we gonna rip it in half? No. Okay. So we have a winner, and we've also proved that a professor can be an auctioneer. Thank you both, Lincoln and Sarah.
Next, it is my privilege to introduce Secretary of State J. Ashcroft. He is Missouri's 40th Secretary of State. Elected in November 2016, in each year as the elected statewide office, he has visited every one of Missouri's 114 counties and met with local election officials, library executives, business owners to promote the office's services, and to learn how he can improve elections and support Missouri's libraries and businesses. Secretary Ashcroft leads an office with more than 200 employees, taking an active role in his administration. He has fought to make changes to his budget to provide transparency. Secretary Ashcroft's background in education, engineering, data production, and the law has provided him a unique perspective on election security and has helped shape the forward-thinking efforts of his state office. He is an active member of the National Association of Secretaries of State and is on the executive committee of NASS. Secretary Ashcroft spearheaded the first National Election Security Summit held in St. Louis. For the summit, he coordinated a program that included national election security experts, local experts from all over the country, and a keynote address from Kirstjen Nielsen, U.S. Secretary of Homeland Security. Election officials from 25 states and a bipartisan group of 10 secretaries of state attended that event. And I have to say, he has cool socks.
Well, thank you. If I get in trouble, the Health Department of actually touch the microphone. I'm from Cole County. We've had a much better year than you all did here, but it is great to see you all. If I could, I'd like to read a quote from Abraham Lincoln's speech to the Young Men's Lyceum of Chicago, Illinois. It was given, I think, January 27th of 1838. And I think it's applicable to us now. He was talking about how the United States would be imperiled. And he said, at what point then is the approach of danger to be expected? I answer, if it never reach us, it must spring up amongst us. It cannot come from abroad if destruction be our lot. We must ourselves be its author and finisher. As a nation of free men, we must live through all time or die by suicide. And I want you to understand that that's the time we're living in right now. If you look at Washington, D.C., and not Jefferson City, we have great elected officials that you've sent to Jefferson City. As much as I might make fun of the Senate occasionally, you've got a great individual in the Senate here. One of the best people at making sure our voter rolls are clean, especially in Boone County. We've got a former Boone County clerk back here. It was wonderful to have a Republican in that position.
Yes.
And we're doing great things, I think, in Jefferson City. We're trying to make sure, as Cecilia talked about, that every child in this state, it's not really about whether or not they have a good education or a bad education, it's whether or not they have the opportunity for a challenging education. Because I don't believe that every child is a widget that is identical. And I believe that giving parents the ability to make that decision is what really drives quality education and taking care of our children. And we have a chance to do that with the Senate leadership that you've been providing. We have a photo ID bill that's moved over to the Senate, where we can truly require people to prove their identity. We'll provide free IDs, we'll get them the underlying documents, but we want the people of this state to have certainty to know that it's easy to vote once, it's hard to vote twice, and if you do it, we will prosecute you to the fullest extent of the law. And we have an election bill that the Senate is working with right now that's passed through the House to make sure that our elections are never like we saw in Georgia and Pennsylvania, where they ignored the law, they ignored their own constitutions. And they said judges could be the executors of what the law would be, and elected secretaries of state would decide that instead of the legislature. We're going to make sure that ID is required. We're going to make sure that once ballots are cast, you don't bring in third-party organizations in St. Louis County, the League of Women, almost said that the way I shouldn't say, the League of Women Voters, to come in and cure absentee ballots for one party, but not for another party. We're going to make sure that our elections, we know the results at 9:30, 10 o'clock, or 11 o'clock at night. Because that's how we do things. Because when it comes right down to it, our forefathers, they knew that the authority for government comes from the consent of the governed. And the governed give up some autonomy for protection from the government, but in return, they require that the government follow certain rules, and the people that effectuate that government must be chosen by the consent of the government. And that's what our elections are about. And I talk about the state level because it's doing well, because that's what we can do when we're involved. It wasn't that long ago when virtually every statewide office in the state was held by Democrats. And if you look at what's happening in Washington, D.C., where we have Democrats in charge that frankly do not love this country. They do not love what it was founded on. They disagree with the idea of equality and opportunity for all, and hard work, and people being able to make their own decisions. They think government knows better. The same government that said don't wear a mask, don't wear a mask, wear 2 masks, get vaccine so you'll be okay. No, after you've had the vaccine, you have to wear 2 masks still. That's ridiculous. The greatness of this country and this state is in the people of this state and the country. And because you didn't come here to hear me talk, you came here for Chris, I know, and for Cecilia. Let me tell you one thing about what's going on in Washington, D.C. You've all heard about H.R. 1. The Democrats, the same Democrats that up until a week ago were trying to overturn the certified election of House Congressional District 2. There was an election the Democrat lost. That can't be allowed, evidently. There was a hand recount. The Republican won. The vote was certified. The Democrat decided not to go to court and went straight to Nancy Pelosi and said, overturn this election. And you know what Nancy Pelosi said? It's only 6 votes. It's my right to do it. But because good people stood up and said no, they had to stop. But I say that to you not only because what we can do is beyond what we believe if we just decide to start. Those are the same people that say that they are passing H.R. 1 for the people. It's against the people. It's because they don't trust the people, because they don't want the people making decisions. And there's a lot of gloom and doom about whether or not it passes and what will happen. I don't know if it will, but I know what we'll do in Missouri. As your Secretary of State, you've given me the privilege of representing you with regard to election laws. And I tell you, we will do 2 things. 1, we will sue them. It's unconstitutional. I'm an attorney. I give you chapter verse. How it's unconstitutional. And not only fun, but the most fun will be step number 2. And that's telling Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer to pound sand. Because an unconstitutional law is void from the beginning, and we will do that. Thank you very much.
More of our elected officials, I'm going to acknowledge a few people that are here this evening. I know Josh Devine said he wanted to speak, but I don't know if you are here, so Josh, if you're here, say hello to everyone. Judge Crane had said that he wanted to attend and sends his well wishes to everyone this evening. Senator Rick Browden from the 31st District, please stand up so we can acknowledge you. The last already, Callaway County Public Administrator Karen Dye Allen. Associate Commissioner of Cass County, Ryan Johnson. Are you here still? He left too? And I would also like to honor any veterans. If there are any veterans in our audience this evening, please stand so we can recognize them. Thank you for your service. I'd also like to honor Larry Mead, who was the representative in 1972 and the county commissioner in 1970. And if there are any other public officials or anyone else who has held public office, if you would please stand so we can recognize your service to your communities. And last but not least, I'm going to recognize my dear friend, Rosa Robb. Her work tirelessly for these events. She puts together all of the ads for our brochures, and she has led the Republican Women for many years, and I follow in her footsteps, and I've appreciated all the guidance and support and words of wisdom that she has offered to me throughout all of these years. So thank you, Rosa, for all you've done. Next, I'd like to introduce Representative Cherie Tolson.
I'm going to take a cue from Secretary Ashcroft. As you all know, I talk so loud, I don't need a microphone, but I'll use one anyway. So in the program, it said next on the agenda was Senator Caleb Browden, and me was, a couple down from there. But there's always this thing when we go to speeches. I'm District 44, Chuck Basie 47, and Miss Sarah Walsh is 50. So I always have to say, I always go first, always, and then the senators after us. You know, it's kind of a pecking order. But when Sarah and I, we've known each other many, many years, I always go, it's age before her beauty. And she's my BFF, and I love her dearly. I gotta tell you all, I'm gonna give a little shout out to several people tonight. With me tonight is my guest, is Miss Maddie Siren from Springfield. Stand up, Maddie. Maddie was my intern. She's an MU student last year, and then COVID hit. But we've remained friends and in contact. But I want to tell a short story. She is from Springfield, Illinois. So we're sorry you're from Illinois, but we're glad you came to MU. And one of her ancestors is Abraham Lincoln. And when I told Cecilia Johnson that, she goes, girl, I'm just telling Abe, I'm just so happy he sent us me. So anyway, it was just wonderful. And Maddie is awesome, and she has her friend Alex here. I gotta tell you, I'm in my 5th year now in the House. Before that, I was a mayor, and I've been on the House Elections Committee 5 years now. And I see Mr. Secretary Ashcroft here weekly, sometimes daily. And we work together with his staff, and every time he comes up to me in the hallway or during a committee hearing, he calls me Mayor. And I always found that strange, but then he said, well, Cherie, sometimes, you know, you may rather be called Mayor because state reps get called all kinds of names in the book. And it's true. So Mayor being a nonpartisan position. But, you know, I have a passion for elections, and I'm going to follow up on his act that I've been in government almost 40 years. And yes, I started in kindergarten. Okay? Don't do the math on that. So when I was a city clerk, right after the 1980 census, they messed Hallsville up, my hometown where I live. And so they had to do a recount in 82. And we knew exactly how many, every man, woman, and child were in our town. Well, a small town, I knew everybody's name, address, phone number, their dog, and their cat's name. And I get a bill from the Boone County Clerk from our April election, and your bill is based on the number of registered voters. And I looked at that and I said, we have more registered voters in Hallsville for every man, woman, child, dog, and cat. Not just people over 18 and older. I'm like, what the heck's going on here? So I requested a list of our registered voters. People had been dead up to 10 years. People that had moved away years ago. People that lived outside our corporate city limits were coded as living inside our city limits. And one little bitty town of 800 in 1980, is that screwed up? Can you imagine how much the whole Boone County and state of Missouri is screwed up? So I've been on a 40-year quest to clean up voter rolls. Last week, we passed an Omnibus elections bill, and part of it had my standalone bill to give the Secretary of State's office the authority to go into a county or a local election authority and audit the rolls. We want our money to be audited. Why do we not want our voter rolls to be audited? So in my 40 years, and of course, the secretary sees me, he goes, how many dead people have you seen today, Cherie? Have you seen any dead people lately? So I do a weekly radio show on Crafts out of Moberly, and I always say about my bills and about, you know, dead people on the rolls. So this nice little old lady sent me a real sweet email, and she said, Ms. Reich, I agree with you. You need to, you know, clean up voter rolls, and I'm 110% behind you. But don't say the word dead people. It's really not nice. So from now on, I will have to say passed or deceased. So if I say dead, I was on the elections committee doing bills this week, and all of a sudden we had all kinds of people there testifying, and Jonathan Prouty and Kay Hofflander about close primaries, but I won't get into that. But anyway, I said, yes, we need to clean up voter rolls. And everybody went like this. and they were waiting and waiting and waiting for me to say dead people. But I'm quiet now. I won't say that anymore, I promise. But it's been exciting. I want to thank you all for electing me. It has been an honor and a privilege. I work for you, not the other way around. And my door is always open, and I do listen to constituents, despite what the Columbia Daily Tribune said. But Donald Trump won his Twitter case, and I won my Twitter case. Thank you.
Well, and I do have to apologize, I did not properly introduce you. I didn't read your sign. But everybody knows you. But just in case you're new, because there's a lot of you new young faces here this evening, Cherie Tolson represents part of Boone County and Randolph County, which is District 44. And she is also a legal assistant with Klein, Braddock, and Bassinger Law Office in Columbia. And prior to working as a legal assistant, as she so eloquently stated, she was the mayor of Hallsville. So again, give Cherie Tolson a round of applause. Next, I would like to introduce Representative Chuck Basie. He represents the 47th District. Chuck Basie is a Republican. He represents part of Boone, Howard, Cooper, and Randolph counties. He was elected to his first two-year term in November of 2014. In addition to his legislative duties, Representative Basie is retired from the Federal Aviation Administration. He served as an air traffic controller in Kansas City and Columbia from 1984 to 2014, and Representative Basie served in the United States Marine Corps from 1976 to 1980. Please welcome Representative Chuck Basie.
Thank you, everybody. I'm going to be very brief. I really appreciate the opportunity that I've had to serve in this capacity. It has been a true honor. I can't say that enough. And I appreciate the support from many people in this room. I do want to give a shout out to the college Republicans that are here tonight. Thank you for all your help. They're very instrumental in helping a lot of us be successful in our races. And also, I'd like to acknowledge my father. He's in the back of the room. He put in 42 years in the United States Navy, and he's been very instrumental in my life, as you can imagine. And I really appreciate him. And many of you know I lost my mother last October, and it's been difficult, but we're doing fine. Everybody goes through that. And I know my dad misses her tremendously. But I do got to tell a little story about my father. Right after the 2018 election, he had a bad accident. He fell and injured himself pretty bad. He ended up breaking his neck, and he had a pretty tough recovery. But he is a very, very tough man. But what I wanted to tell you is the night at the emergency room, I actually took him to the hospital. When they finally got him into a room, the nurse came in there. Now, keep in mind, now he's got a broken neck, broken in 3 spots. And you can imagine how painful that is, especially for a guy that age. And the nurse came in and asked him how this happened. So he explained it to her. He was moving a small little Christmas tree, had a heavy base, and somehow he got tangled up in a cord or something, but he tripped and fell and hit his head on the floor. And he said to the lady, he said, it could have been worse. And she looked at him and like, how could it have been worse? And he said, well, I could have been carrying a case of whiskey. So I heard that story repeated several times, and it was just awesome. But I thank the world of my father, of course, and everybody here. But thank you so much for this opportunity to serve you. I'm in my last term. It's hard to believe. I got a year and a half left. And I think we're going to get a lot of good things done. I'm very, very happy to have not only my colleagues, Cherie and Sarah, but Senator Browden. His position in the Senate is very, very important. And him being the Senate Majority Leader is very helpful to not only us, but Boone County and Central Missouri. And I really appreciate his leadership very much. Thank you all so much for being here. And I, again, thank you.
Thank you, Chuck. We appreciate your service. Next, I'd like to introduce Representative Sarah Walsh. Sarah Walsh represents parts of Boone, Cole, Cooper, and Montauk counties. She is for District 50 in the Missouri House of Representatives. She was elected in a special election in August of 2017. Previously, Representative Walsh worked as a member service coordinator for the Missouri Pharmacy Association, staff auditor for the Missouri State Auditor's Office, programs and outreach manager for the National Newspaper Association, legislator assistant for the Missouri House of Representatives, administrative assistant, veterans certifying official for Columbia College, quality control inspector for Maytag, and as a deli worker for Mosher's Food in Holt Summit. I would like to represent Sarah Walsh. Please come up. Thank you. Thank you very much. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know they were going to read the full bio, and that sorry to put you guys all through that. Such an honor to serve you all in Jefferson City, and I just want to thank everybody for all your support throughout the years. I'm in my third term this year. As you know, I won in a special election back in 2017, and it's just been such a privilege and an honor to serve you in Jefferson City, and every day is a fantastic day to fight for freedom. Thank you. My husband, Steve Walsh, that you know over here very well, he and I have been traveling to some Lincoln Days throughout the state. And this year, more so than others, the Lincoln Day events have been packed. People are energetic, people are enthused, and people want to be able to take back our nation. That is good. Because it takes every single one of us. And those small donations that you make, $25, $100, all that you guys do, helping out, putting up signs, thank you, Hunter Thomas, all the efforts that you guys do make a difference and be able to send us there to be able to serve you and represent you. As has been mentioned, there's going to be a big Senate race for Roy Blunt's seat. We're going to need to rally behind Republicans and get out the vote like never before. A few things that I'm working on in Jefferson City this session, and really proud of our Senator Caleb Browden, Majority Floor Leader, because he's helping us with legislation to get things across the finish line in the Senate, and that is vitally important. I won't make any Senate jokes. So a few things I'm working on, so basically one thing that came to light, especially after all the COVID thing, is that Missouri Sunshine Law says that you can post on a bulletin board notice of your meetings. Government bodies can do that, and that's sufficient to satisfy the posting requirements for Sunshine. Well, during COVID, everyone's encouraged to stay home, and they're not out there, so how do they know exactly what's going on? It has been long past time for us to be able to have folks that have websites, these government bodies, health boards, whatever, to be able to put that information on their social media page and their website if they have one. So I've got a bill, House Bill 27, it's basically on the House perfection calendar, and so that means it's going to essentially come up for debate on the House floor. We can third read it, send it to the Senate, and see what other places we can drop it. I'm also working on, as you know, in the past, Republicans were not really for taxes. However, the city of Ashland is growing by leaps and bounds. And so the lodging tax, which essentially we will have hotels in Ashland and Southern Boone. Right now, you're in District 50, which is super cool. And so around the airport, they've been expanding the terminal, and our growth is incredible. Ashland's one of the fastest growing cities in Missouri, and so this would just allow, in a November election, no sooner than 2022, the city to be able to put on the ballot for people to decide yes or no. And November election is the way to go, because that way you really get a good voice of the people, whether they say yay or nay to it. So that's passed the House on another bill, and we'll see what happens in the Senate. Also, some more transparency information requiring public pension plan employees, not the people with pensions, but the employee salaries, to be posted on the Missouri Accountability Portal for increased transparency. I've got another bill. So I was watching the news, and we saw in Portland, Oregon, the protesters that were actually pointing lasers, and some of these were high-powered lasers that do instantaneous permanent damage. All laser pointers are not safe. But that injured more than 100 police officers' eyes in Portland, Oregon. So honestly, the story just made me sick. And I started looking into seeing what laws we have in the books in Missouri. About half the states in the nation have laws that you already can't point them at aircrafts for obvious reasons. But there wasn't one in the books in Missouri. Filed a bill, working on getting that amended on some different things, and so we'll see what happens there. A couple other things that I'm working on are It's a bill that has to do with, sorry, I've been really busy, so I've been hard to work for you guys. It has to do with, so allowing medical examiners and forensic investigators when they respond to crime or accident scenes to be able to use flashing lights on their vehicles so they can get to the head and the backup. Dale Roberts, who I'm not sure if he's with us tonight, but he is the Columbia Police Officers Executive Director, lives in Ashland, and he has a neighbor who's actually serves in this role, and she's talking about the trouble getting to the end of the line. That actually, Senator Bernsgetter, who represents the Montauk part of District 50, is going to be handling that in the Senate, and it's already been referred to committee, so we'll see that one might have a good chance of getting through with the help of our wonderful, awesome majority floor leader. And then one other bill, which was common sense. So I had Jacob Brummett. He may not be with us today, but he's a huge Trump supporter, and you may have seen his signs at Creekside Pet Supply, or Creekside Pets rather, reward your pets between Ashland and Columbia. You can see that there on the right. He had a big Trump sign up, and people burned his signs, vandals, and so it's crazy. I'd given him some Missouri and American flags, or replaced the ones that were burned in the dark of night by some person. And anyhow, this bill basically, he was also going through all that, and then also with the city, had struggled to basically justify that pet grooming was essential. Because the federal government had the recommendations of what was essential and what wasn't essential. And if you weren't falling in the class of essential, the government essentially could shut you down. So my bill, House Bill 851, deems that all occupations in Missouri are essential. Super common sense. It was basically, it's been referred to the Legislative Oversight Committee, and the chair plans on execing it out on Tuesday of next week. So then it comes to the House floor, and we'll work to get that ushered through the process and maybe amended on some other things. And then lastly, or second to last, I also filed a bill. So in the budget, for years and years, we've been putting pro-life protected language and language saying that you can't have public dollars in Missouri going towards cloning, human cloning, research that involves human cloning. So Missouri Right to Life has been an advocate of this language for many years, and we've been putting it on budget bills. Well, there was a court case that said you can't basically at the end of a budget bill put this overarching language that covers the whole budget bill. It has to be in every single specific sections, or you have to refer to statute. So it's long past time for us to put this in statute so that we can have that and protect your tax dollars not going towards abortion or research that might involve, like I said, human cloning. So that bill is scheduled to be exec out of Mary Elizabeth Coleman, who chairs the House Children and Families Committee on Wednesday, next week at 8 a.m. From there goes the rules. From there we can try to get to the floor, and we'll be looking at other bills to try to get it amended on. Again, with the help of our awesome majority floor leader. And then lastly, as Hunter Thomas, who kind of stole my talking point, but every year that I've been in the Missouri House, I've worked to find funding for Missouri Task Force 1, which is not very far from here in northern Boone County, in Cherie Tolson's district, I believe. And so we've got in the Missouri House budget an additional $100,000 for a total of $225,000. The governor had 125, we added an additional 100. So hopefully in the Senate, nobody takes it out. We can fight for it, I'm sure. We'll be able to keep that in. And then lastly, I'm also working on finding some funding. So Rankin Technical School, if you haven't heard about that, the City of Ashland and the Southern Boone School District is working on basically bringing a trade school, a satellite campus of Rankin Tech, to teach technical school in Ashland. And they just announced it today. They've been awarded a $4.5 million EDA grant from the federal government, and they have like a $3 million funding gap. They're doing some private fundraising. My husband and I are going to personally give $1,000 out of our own pockets towards that. And then I'm working in the state budget. We might not be able to get it in this current budget, but I talked to the budget chair in the House. He's got a plan. There's some other dollars that are that he's identified that we can be able to, in the near future, be able to try to put towards that. So we'll see kind of how that gets across the finish line. So those are just a few things. I want to give you guys an update of what we're working on in Jefferson City. It is an incredible honor to serve you. Just know that in Missouri, serving for you, working with colleagues in the Missouri Senate, in the Missouri House, in the Missouri Legislature. Missouri, you guys are solid. They are working so hard for freedom. Our Speaker, Rob Piscopo, is working so hard to get good conservative policies across the finish line. I'm excited about the things we've already done, the things we're yet to do. And God bless you. Thank you for all your prayers. And God bless Missouri, the great state of America. Great United States. Well, next I would like to introduce Senator Caleb Browden. As we have all heard, he is the majority floor leader of the Republicans. He represents District 19. Senator Caleb Browden was elected to the Missouri Senate in 2016, representing Boone and Cooper counties. Prior to his election to the Senate, Browden served 2 terms in Missouri House of Representatives. He was the first elected Missouri House in 2012, and he became the first representative in the history of Missouri to be 2 state senators in a Missouri House race. Browden currently serves as, again, the Senate Majority Floor Leader. And Mr. Browden, just as you take those bills from the Senate and get them on their way to the governor's office for signature, you are going to take us to the end of our program this evening. So everyone welcome Senator Caleb Browden.
Well, I'm the last thing standing between y'all and some of the older folks in bed, so I'm gonna be fairly brief tonight. First of all, thank you. It is always an honor to be here. This is my 10th or 11th one of these, and I was scared to death the first time I got on stage 10 years ago. But since then, we've accomplished so much. We've elected Republicans. We've elected these great individuals that you've heard from. This delegation of House members that you guys have works harder, without a doubt, works harder than anybody else in the building, bar none. So give them another fantastic round of applause. I want to talk to you about 2 things real quick, and then we'll let you go. I want to talk about school choice and following up on what Cecilia started, and then I want to talk to you about winning elections. So it has been the honor of my life to be able to do this. This was not something I thought I would ever do in a million years. So I remember I was thinking back, and I had some notes, and we're not going to use them tonight, but I was thinking about 10 years ago, my wife and I were sitting on our couch, maybe a little bit longer, and we had an opportunity to go to Dallas, Texas, and many of you know I was in full-time ministry before I decided to get into politics. Had an opportunity to go to Dallas, stayed here, and it was the same faith in God in a very unique way that put me in ministry that also nudged me into politics. And so we've heard a lot tonight about the reality that it's a tough season of life for Republicans. We don't have the majority in the United States House. We're tied in the Senate. We don't have the White House. And so as Christopher Arks mentioned, it feels like winter. But for anybody that shares a faith in God and an understanding, you have to believe that at the end of the day, God is in control. Right? And so we have, from my perspective, we have something tangible that the other side, frankly, just doesn't have. And so we have an opportunity, I think, to do a couple of things that can drastically turn the tide in this country. You've already heard Georgia, Major League Baseball, that whole fiasco, the border crisis, all of this stuff is knocking on our doorstep, and I very much think that folks in the middle of the country, the center right, center left, don't like what they're seeing. But I do think the fight for educational freedom is the most important fight that Republicans can lead on in this next decade, without a doubt. There is a reality that exists, and we see it a lot in the inner cities and the cities here in Missouri. There are kids that are born, and some of them are black, some of them are white, born into generational poverty by no choice of their own, are born into a situation where they have no ability to control their situation. And so we send them to school, and many times we send them to schools that by every measure and definition, to Cecilia's earlier point, are failing schools. And in Missouri, because for so often and for so long in our state capital, the teachers' unions and the education establishment has ran state policy as it relates to education, those kids are stuck. Those kids are trapped. We have told those kids born into generational poverty that you have nowhere to go but exactly where you are. And that's why when I started in the House, it was not something that I really knew a lot about, cared a lot about, but now it has become my top priority, and it's something that I think we can lead on and do immeasurable things for the next generation by giving them opportunities that the other side, frankly, doesn't want to give them because they're so beholden to the education establishment. Here's where I want to leave with you tonight. It's been a frustrating time, and I think a lot of us, there's a couple of things that we can do. We can stand up and yell and scream and talk about everything that's wrong and what the other side's doing that's so messed up.
We can cower back into our corner and just act like that nothing's going on, or we can stand up and fight. And I think the reality that exists before us in the coming weeks and months and years, we've talked about 2022, we've got to take back the United States House. We've got to take back the United States Senate. We've got to set the stage to take back the White House in 2024. But there's something that I think we're missing that we've got to get a hold of, and it's the reality that, you know, the Democrats, they fight these culture wars, and they fight this woke progressive movement because they know that their ideas don't work. We have always and will continue to be the party of ideas. And so it's one thing to get back into power. It's one thing to win elections. And I've had the privilege of overseeing the maintenance of the largest majority in the history of the state of Missouri, Republicans in the Missouri Senate. And let me tell you a couple of things that we've done in that time. In 1984, in Missouri, there were upwards of 20,000 abortions in the state of Missouri. In 2019, there were less than 40. Less than 40. And so I think we need to stand up on this stage and with a clear conscience and a big smile and face say that Missouri is the most pro-life state in the country because we've been able to keep Republicans in power and representation. But it's not just enough to know that something's wrong. We've got to fight. We've got to stand up, and we've got to do things that we've never done before. The reality of the situation is we are, I believe, 1 or 2 generations away from a United States of America that many of us don't recognize. Maybe some of you think we're already there, but I certainly think we're headed that direction. And so we have a mandate in front of us that says that we have to win. Republicans have to win, because if we don't, the alternative is further and further and further to the left, further down this road that they want to call socialism. Maybe it's even further than that. But I tell you something, I'm 38 years old. You know, there's a generation of folks, younger than me, and a lot of them are here today. They don't love the idea of a bunch of government in their life. They don't love the idea of government dictating everything that they do, taking 30, 40, 50% of their income. They don't like that. And so what I would contend is that while the Democrats want to distract us with all of these progressive culture things, we can stand up and fight and lead with ideas. Lead with new ideas in healthcare. Lead with new ideas in education. Lead with new ideas in the area of public safety. There are basic things that the people of Missouri and the people of America care about. And if Republicans lead on those issues, we will absolutely win. No doubt about it. So I was listening to Ronald Reagan's speech in 1964, Time for Choosing, and there was a quote that stuck out to me, and I'm closing with this. He said, not too long ago, 2 friends of mine were talking to a Cuban refugee, a businessman who had escaped from Castro, and in the midst of his story, one of my friends turned to the other and said, we don't know how lucky we are. And the Cuban stopped and said, how lucky you are. I had some place to escape to. And in that sentence, Reagan said, he told us the entire story. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. So the message is simple. The message is absolutely simple. We come to these Lincoln Days every year and we have a great time. They go a little bit too long, but that's okay. We love each other, so it's perfect. Before I close out, I do want to thank Laura Nauser, Rosa Robb, Mike's wife, Tony Lupo one more time. And we always say this, it's the most important election, it's the most important, it's the most important. But we are witnessing the decay of America right in front of our eyes. And I'm not the most excitable guy. I'm not the guy that talks in big metaphors. I'm not the guy that likes to see my face
on the news. Usually if my face is on the news, something has gone wrong. I'm not that guy, and I don't usually speak in big hyperbole. But I think we are witnessing a fundamental shift in how the Democrats want to govern in America. And so it's not just good enough to say we don't like what they're doing. Because if we don't stand up and if we don't elect Republicans at every level of government, they're going to take over. And so we have a chance to do, I think, one of the more generational sort of things that we can ever do, and that is to organize. That is to know what we believe, to know why we believe it, to be able to articulate in a way that will benefit me. It will benefit folks to the left, folks to the right, folks in urban areas, folks in rural areas. We have a chance to do something great. So if you're discouraged, if you're not ready to fight, stand up and fight. We can do this together. It's a pleasure to be here. It's been a pleasure to serve as your senator. There are great days ahead, and God bless America. God bless you.
Thank you, Senator Browden. I think I can speak for everyone here in our audience this evening. We appreciate your leadership based on your faith in God and your Republican principles that you pursue. So thank you very much. And that, ladies and gentlemen, will conclude our event for this evening. It has been wonderful to have so many people get together, kind of like the old times. Maybe this is the beginning of going back to normal. So everyone be careful going home, and I hope to see you out there in a good fight. Good evening, and see you.
Thank you, Lauren, for being a wonderful master of ceremonies tonight. And thank you, and God bless everybody. Have a good weekend.